It's a continuation of our 1951 family pictures. This is me, and we're still in Chicago. This is before Tommy was born. And that's me and James, along about the same time. That's James, out in back of that building where we lived. It's my little Jim. And that's me and James, and I'm holding Billy and James is holding Jimmy. And this is down in the backyard of that old building we lived. That's Jimmy on one side, the black-headed one, and Billy on the other, little blonde. And that's James and Jimmy. And I don't know who that other one is on the end eating supper in Chicago. That's little Billy. Got a knot on his head where he fell out of the chair. That's James and Willie Hugh Bowman. And my Billy, playing in the dirt. There's James playing his old guitar. And lonesome. We were sure enough homesick at that time, wanting to come back to Tennessee. And that's another one of me. That's the corner of 18th and Wabash where we lived. And that was across the street from where our building was. We made that with a camera out the window. That's the back steps of that apartment building where we lived. And that's Faye down at the bottom of the steps. She had come up there to visit with us for a little while. And Jimmy behind her, and I believe that's May up there on the top part of the steps. And another one of me. And that's a few months before Tommy was born, to about 3 months before he was born. Me and James, along about the same time, probably the same day. And James and Jimmy and Billy. And there's James's daddy and his wife, Miss Sally. Papa and Miss Sally. Okay, it's a continuation of 1951, and some of these pictures even run on through 1958. This is me, and that's when we lived in Chicago, and we were out visiting Houston where he was in boot camp in the Navy. And that's a picture of me. And that's Daddy in Houston. Daddy had finally come to Chicago. to live with us for a little while, and that's Daddy out there visiting Houston boot camp. And that's Jack in Chicago taking him a little nap. That's the daughter of a friend of ours, and I can't even remember her name. And that's Houston when he was in the Navy on a beach somewhere. And this is a picture of May. And that was May while she lived up there in Chicago. That's a picture of some girls, children that lived upstairs in Chicago. And that's the front door with Viola and somebody to the rooming house in Chicago where we lived. That's me and May in the kitchen trying to fix something to eat. And a friend of ours in Chicago, a little girl. Don't know her name. And that's all of us around the eating table. May and Jack and Houston and Daddy and Jimmy and me and Billy and Thelma, and hidden behind Thelma, my stepmother Thelma, is Billy. May's holding Billy. And that's a picture of me. Some Christmas, I don't know which one. And the backyard in Chicago and snow, and there's our car down there practically buried in the snow. And that's Tommy when he was a baby. And there's Daddy again. Jimmy sitting in the rocking chair in our apartment, third floor apartment. This is a man and a woman who were friends of ours that lived up there at that time, and that woman was blind. And that was a friend of James's, Benny Solomon. James liked him a lot. And there's Houston, holding Billy on one side and Jimmy on the other one. And Jimmy and Billy standing up in the chair in their cowboy boots. That's a picture of the kids in the park, and that's that woman named Viola that kept house up there with him. And that's Billy. It's James and Jimmy and Billy. And Daddy. Boy, he sure looked young. Some friend of Houston's when he was in the Navy. That's a picture of a bulldozer that Houston drove when he was in the Navy. He was in the Seabees. That's that lady named Viola holding Billy. And that's Houston's standing beside one of the trucks at the motor pool where he worked when he was in the Navy. And that's James holding Tommy and Houston sitting on the bed watching TV. That's one of Houston's Navy pictures. That's me looking out the window on our second floor apartment in Chicago. James took that from down on the sidewalk. And that's my daddy and my brother Houston and James. That's me in Houston. And James and Houston and Daddy. Another one of Houston in his whites. There's another one of Richard Underwood when he lived up there. He was a cousin of James. His daddy and James's daddy was brothers. And his daddy married my grandpa's sister, so that makes me kin to him too. And there's a picture of Richard and his wife Helen and their baby Judy. Another one of me, that was the apartment we lived in on the first floor when James was manager of our apartment building. James and Jack. Houston. That's Houston and some of his Navy buddies. Houston's the second one from the end over there. And a picture of his little band at one time in the Navy. And this is Houston over here by my thumb. And that's my kids out in the park, and that's that little boy named George that we had carried to the park with us over on the far side by himself. That's Houston. Me and James. Billy with the balloons in the park and Jimmy way back behind him. That's Houston. Navy pictures. That too. That's George Caldwell. That's Houston in his apartment just before he went in the Navy. That's some friends of me and Jack's. I don't know them. And that's James and Jimmy and Billy. But the picture got stuck somehow or another and pulled James's face and head off. The little blonde is Billy and the dark-haired one's Jimmy. That's Houston and Jack making a little music. Love the way my windows is fixed to keep my babies from climbing up in them and falling out the windows, but that's the best I could do. That's Houston. And that's that man named Russell and me and Viola in the zoo watching the kids. That's me in Houston, where we visited him at boot camp. And that's Houston. And that's Jimmy and Billy as Cisco and Pancho, but that picture was stuck and tore Jimmy's head off. And it's another one of Billy and Jimmy. I used to dress them just alike. They were so close to being the same size. Age, 14 months difference in them. That's Houston, his commanding officer, where he shipped over for another 3 or 4 years or something other at one time. And that's him. And that's him, but it's so dark, I guess you can't see him. And James. And Houston. Tommy back in that baby bed again. Houston. And first floor back porch, Chicago. And there's Richard in our apartment watching TV. Richard Underwood. Jimmy sitting in the high chair. Old ice box over there to one side. We didn't have a refrigerator at that time. And there's Jimmy and Billy fighting over a chair. And Tommy. He's in May's bed that time. We were visiting May then. There's Cisco and Pancho. There's Jimmy, how dirty he is in his little short pants. He'd been playing in coal dust that day. And my Billy. And Tommy. Tommy sitting in the middle of the bed, and Billy and Jimmy first got up one morning. That's Houston holding Tommy. Billy. Tommy. Houston holding Tommy. Jack. Caldwell. It's Houston and a friend of his, picking and grinning. That's what he loves to do, and always has. That's James. That right there is a fella called Mr. Mike that managed the apartment building where we lived before James did. And he loved my kids. He hated all other kids, but he loved Jimmy and Billy. Tommy. There's a picture of our old car. Houston. And the truck Houston used to drive in the Navy. I think this is the same truck. Another picture of James. Looked like he was washing a car, or somebody was. But that was made over at May and Jack's apartment. And that's Jimmy shooting somebody. These were some more friends of ours, but I can't even think of their name. Houston. Well, that's a picture of Adak, Alaska, where Houston was stationed for about a year. It's me in Houston. George Caldwell. That's Becky Hutchins. And that's my daddy. And that's Tommy Underwood, my little Tommy. And he had been scraping the pan where I had made some chocolate, and he got it all over it. But I love that picture. And that is Anderson Avenue. That was when we moved from Chicago to Anderson Avenue. And that's Faye and our dog Butch that we brought back from Chicago with us, and Tommy trying to catch the dog, and Jimmy and Billy down there by our car. Okay, these are some more 1951 through 1958 pictures. And that's Uncle Hubert, my daddy's brother. And that was made down at Central State Hospital, where he lived ever since he was about 15 or 16 years old. And that's Ewan and Nora's only child, Louise, when she was a baby. And that's a Chattanooga picture. That's Thelma, Daddy's second wife, and some little girl they kept at that time. And that's a picture of, I think that's May in an apartment somewhere. And that's Daddy. I know that's a Chattanooga picture. Holding a doll. And that's Daddy and Thelma. Chattanooga. That's a picture of a tavern where he went sometimes. And there's Daddy and Thelma and Alton McDaniel, who was Daddy's second cousin, first cousin. That's Daddy and Thelma. And that's Charles sitting on Mama and Daddy's tomb rock at Cothran's graveyard. I think that's some little friends of Jimmy's when he went to school. That's Jerry, one of his school pictures. And that's Thelma and Mama standing up. And Judy by Mama and Jerry on his bicycle at Anderson Avenue in Chattanooga. And that's May and Jimmy and Billy at a park in Chattanooga. Daddy. And Daddy and Thelma used to live down in that building that's got a Coca-Cola sign on it. They had a little apartment fixed in there. Thelma. Daddy and Thelma. And that's the little girl they used to keep. And that's Claire Fay Underwood. That's Howard and Blanche's oldest child. And that's a picture of Catherine's graveyard where all Mama's people are buried. Daddy at the incline in Chattanooga, going up toward top of Lookout Mountain. And that's Daddy and a friend of theirs. And the little girl they used to keep. And that's a few Chicago pictures in here. And that's Viola Johnson of Chicago, and Doug Russell, and Viola's holding Billy and Doug's holding Jimmy. Daddy and Thelma. Thelma. That's Daddy and Thelma, and that little girl's named Vicky. Remember her. It's Lee's Cafe. It's where Daddy used to eat all the time. Him and Thelma. Them two little girls Daddy and them used to keep. There's Mama and Fay and Judy out walking around in the Catherine's graveyard. Daddy and Thelma. Daddy and Thelma again. That right there is a double exposure. That's Tommy with the lady's baby that lived upstairs, and Tommy's the biggest. He's the one that's sitting up. That's James and me and Jimmy and Billy and Tommy. And stair steps. And then that's a bunch of other kids that lived in that same building. And that's James and me, James's friend Doug. Houston and Jimmy. And me. That's our part of our apartment on the third floor, Chicago. Daddy and Houston and James. And Daddy over here with my thumb and some of his friends. And that's Lily Fay and Mama up on the square in Murfreesboro. Somebody took their picture. Looked like it was a winter day. It's Jimmy and Billy in Barfield. Or Tommy. That's Tommy and the dog and Jimmy, I believe. And that's Billy and Becky Hutchins. Billy's up in the car playing with her. And that's my Uncle Hubert and Daddy at Central State. And that's Aunt Tootsie and Uncle Hubert at Central State. These was all probably took at different years, I'd say, or maybe, I don't really know. Okay, this next batch is from 1955 through 1958. And that's one of Judy's school pictures. That's Billy out beside the house on Anderson Avenue. No, excuse me, that's Jimmy. This one's Billy. And that's Jimmy when we lived at Daisy on our front porch, and where we'd remodeled that house and put pine paneling on the front porch. We thought that was really something. Jimmy sure is a good-looking boy. And there's Billy holding Jimmy's trumpet. He is a pretty boy too. It's Billy out at Aunt Tootsie and Uncle Minkett's side calf. And there's Billy making like Elvis. Elvis was just beginning to get popular then. And there's Jimmy down in the front yard at Daisy with the guitar. And the knees wore out of his blue jeans. And there's Jimmy's first real dog that he claimed for his very own. That was Popeye. And this is down on Blankenship's farm where we moved to after Daisy. No, that's Aunt Tootsie and them's farm where we was visiting. I think that's Blankenship's farm. That's a little girl May and Jack brought down from Chicago with them. And that's a picture of all the Underwoods at a family reunion somewhere. Look like Charlie, Claire Faye's husband, and Papa, and Jack, and James, and Brother, and Ewan, and Howard, and Bobby, and Jimmy, I believe. Now that's Faye's school picture when we lived at Daisy. And that's Jimmy and Bobby Shelton playing in a tree in the front yard at Daisy. That's James on Uncle Minkett's farm. And Jimmy at Daisy. Judy's school picture, one of them. That's Miss Taylor and Jerry, I believe, Claire Faye's oldest child. And there's a picture of my little dog Whitey rolling in the grass at Daisy. And that right there is some of Jimmy's little friends up there. And that's a picture of me, how I looked when we lived at Daisy. And Jimmy and Billy and some little friends of theirs on their bicycles. And that's Jimmy in his classroom at school. Right there's Jimmy. That was one of Jimmy's teachers. Jimmy with his trumpet. Where he took music lessons at Daisy's school. Another picture of Popeye. Tommy, I believe, peeping around the tree down there. There's Jimmy and Billy sitting in an old car. There's Billy. Tommy. And that's Claire Faye's oldest child, Jerry. Bobby Shelton, who was Jimmy's best friend at Daisy. More of Jimmy's little friends. And that's Jimmy acting like Elvis. Learning, and they was really learning to play the guitar then too. And that's me and James. This is our house where we lived at that time at Daisy while we was in the process of trying to remodel it. We had a lot of happy memories up there. Another picture of Jimmy in class. And this is Jimmy right here. And that's Jerry out under the shade tree, and he's learning to play the guitar too. James taught every one of them. Jerry and Jimmy and Billy. Tommy later learned when he got a little bit bigger. And that's Billy, dressed up to go to church. And Jimmy's over at his little friend's house, and I'm not sure, but I think his little friend's name was Millsaps, and that's Jimmy right there. And we're back to Anderson Avenue. This Anderson Avenue was before we moved to Daisy, just before it. And that's Jimmy and Billy and Tommy, I think, all out there in the front yard, or side yard, playing. And that's Tommy and Butch, dog. And that's Faye and Tommy and Butch and Jimmy down there on the car. And Billy too, I think. And that's Billy carrying Butch, and he's bigger than he is, just about it. That's May in the park. And that's Butch and Tommy out there by the rabbit cage. Jimmy and Billy had some rabbits out there by the barn, or the garage. And there they are, all up laying around on the car, and that's Tommy down there playing with the dog, trying to catch a dog on Anderson Avenue. There was our front porch then. Jimmy, Billy, and Tommy out there in that backyard again. And there's another one with Tommy pulling a dog's ear. And that's just a view of the other end of our house at Daisy before we remodeled it. And that's Jimmy and Billy up on the car and Tommy down in front of the car. And another one. Tommy and him on the car and Faye going towards the house. And that's one of Claire Faye and Jerry at her house somewhere. And that was one when Mama was married to John Tidwell on Strasser's farm. We was visiting down there. And that's Charles and Mama and me and Little Faye. And that's another one of Strasser's farm. And that's the smaller kids. Tommy and Jimmy and Billy and Judy and Jerry. There's Jimmy and his dog Popeye. And that's Billy down there, the driveway at Daisy. And that's Papa and me and Jimmy and Billy and Thomas Wayne and Larry and Louise. And that was made at Ewan's house in McMinnville, I believe. And this right here is Evelyn Samples and a friend of hers in Houston. Married this girl the first time he was married. This is a picture of her and her little girl by a previous marriage. And this one, the baby, is a picture of Houston's and her child. This is a picture of her little boy by a previous marriage. Okay, we're ready to start 1959 pictures. This right here is beginning from the left is Papa and Louise and Tommy and Billy sitting down, and then Jimmy and James standing behind him. And this right here is Charles and Uncle Minky at Uncle Minky's farm out on the Florence Road. This is a family reunion at, I believe, May and Jack's. And that's Brother and me and Bobby and Shirley and Billy and Jimmy, and that's all I can make out on that one. And this right here is Aunt Tootsie when they were in Florida on vacation one time. And that's Uncle Hubert down at Central State Hospital. And that's May fixing to take a picture, I believe, and me sitting on the porch behind her. And that's Faye and Wendell Burks in the middle, and a friend of hers and her boyfriend. That was before they got married. And that's Jimmy. And that's Billy driving the tractor. And I don't know who that other little boy is. This is more pictures at that family reunion. And that's Billy and me and May with her back turned. And that's Papa on the end of the porch, and there's Brother playing the harmonica. And that right there is Blanche, looking behind her, and Judy, and Shirley, and Ewan. That's one of Jerry's school pictures. That's Ewan. I believe that's Tommy. Blankenship's Farm. It's Jack and Brother. This is Claire Faye's graduation picture. That's my sister Faye and girl she used to room with. That's Billy's dime store picture. And that's Billy Spence and Joanne. And their little girl Billy Joe standing on the ground, and she's holding Ricky. Another picture of Brother. And that's Mama and me. And Faye's back and her girlfriend's back. That's a picture of Charles when he drove a milk truck when he lived with Aunt Tootsie and Uncle Mickey. That's Ewan and Papa sitting down, and James. Now I guess that's Beulah Faye and Mama before Beulah Faye and Houston got married. And that's my Faye and me and Beulah at Ewan and Nora's house in McMinnville. That's Mama and Miss Sally. Okay, there's Tommy and Louie sitting on the ground, and Billy and Papa and Jimmy with the guitar. and Beulah Faye, and Mama, and Lily Faye. Faye and Mama. Miss Sally. And Mama and Beulah Faye and Lily Faye and Nora and Miss Sally and me. And then that's Beulah Faye's high school picture, I guess. This is Tommy's first grade picture. This is Tommy. One of my fingers on it right here. Some of these pictures date back from 1956 through 1960. And we're back on Anderson Avenue with Jimmy and Billy sitting on the car and Tommy standing down in front of it. And that's a picture, one of Tommy's school pictures. I believe he was in the second grade then. And that's a picture of Mama and John Tidwell made out yonder at Cosmo's graveyard. This one goes back to Daisy. And that's Billy and Jimmy in the middle and Tommy and Popeye, the dog. And that's Mama at Daisy. And that's Billy. And I believe that's Bobby Shelton. And that's Bobby Shelton. He was the little boy that lived up the road from us at Daisy. And back at that reunion again, that's Judy with her back turned, and May and Ewan, and Big Jimmy and Billy. And they're all playing music. There's Papa again. Jimmy loved his little dog. That's Tommy on his bicycle. He was just learning to ride. He learned to ride his bicycle at Daisy. And that's Billy, Tommy first, and then Billy. And Tommy's holding a dog, and Billy's holding a cat or a dog or a rabbit. I don't know what he's holding. And that's James and his three boys. Jimmy and Tommy in the middle and Billy on the other side. And there's Mama with her three grandsons. That's Billy and Tommy and Jimmy. And that's Houston and the three boys. Billy and Tommy in the middle and Jimmy on the other side. And that's Jerry making like Elvis at Daisy, where James taught him to play the guitar. And that's one of Jimmy's little friends, at Daisy's school, but I can't remember the little boy's name. Millsaps, maybe. And that's James and Jimmy coming to the house from the car, coming up the hill at Daisy, going towards the house. And that's the picture of the well house out in back of the house, and I believe that's our dog Butch, or Papa, I can't remember which. We had both dogs right along about that same time. And that's a picture of Dairy Gold, where I worked as a curb girl along about that time, and I guess I was about 22 years old. And then I later became assistant manager. And Faye also worked there as a curb girl along about that time. And that's a picture of Tommy when we first moved to Daisy. He wasn't very big then. And there's Billy and Tommy and Jimmy. That's how they looked when they played. Tommy's got a bandage on his knee where he went to work with his daddy and fell and cut it on a piece of tin. And he had about 5 or 6 stitches in it. They sure were happy days then. And after Dairy Gold, while we lived at Daisy, I got a job at Pruitt's Food Town. And this is a picture of me advertising Clorox for a salesman that came in the store one day. This is a picture of Olita's kids, a friend of mine that also worked at the store where I did. Another little girl of hers. And this is me and Jack's first 2 children. Betty Ann on one side, who's the oldest, and Michael. And a picture of Judy when she was in high school at Kittrell. It's a picture of Ewan and Nora when we lived on Blankenship's farm and we had Papa a birthday dinner. And these pictures were made there. Papa's cake. And Jack down at the barn at Blankenship's helping do the milking that Sunday night. And that's the kids down at the barn. That's a little girl made and brought down from Chicago with them, and Judy behind her, and Billy at the top of the ladder. And that's Shirley and Jerry, who is Claire Faye's daughter. And that's Jack and Betty holding Betty Ann up there. They still lived in Chicago at that time. And that's me and Jack. And that's our table of all the goodies for Papa's birthday dinner. And that's Tommy and the little girl from Chicago and Judy. And a picture of Tommy and that little girl at the pump in front of the house at Blankenship's place. Some more of the same thing. It's May and Jack and Betty Ann. And that's Tommy Woods and his wife, Aletha, I believe's her name. Haven't seen them anymore since that time. Hey, that's Tommy on when we lived on Battleground Drive, I believe. Or maybe that's Las Casas. I'm not sure which place that is. And that was me and James at that birthday dinner at Papa's. Howard and Blanche and Shirley. And it's a picture of the kids in the barn. And it's Jerry and Tommy. And this was Battleground Drive. And that's May and Jack's first child, Betty. Or Betty Ann and Betty. And that's her when she got a little bit bigger. That's Shirley Underwood. That's Howard and Blanche's youngest. Jerry's school picture. Have no idea what grade. Probably Kittrell School. And that one too, more than likely. Okay, this is pictures taken in the years between 1960 and 64. These was taken at Las Casas right after we built our new house out there. And there's Billy, or Tommy and Billy and me and James standing out by the front of the house, corner of the house. And it's James on Tommy's bicycle. We don't have too many pictures made out there at Las Casas. We had several on film, but they got lost over there at Tootsie's and Uncle Minkett's house. Wish we had them. This is Jimmy standing out by a car. I don't know whose car that is. Along about that time, and I don't know where it is unless it's when we was on vacation in the Smokies that year. And this is vacation in the Smokies. place right along in here is our vacation in the Smoky Mountains. And that's James standing out there by Red Plymouth out in front of the motel where we stayed while we were up there. This is me and the boys, 3 boys, on a rock somewhere up in the Smokies. Can't remember where. And that's me and the 3 boys. Again. And there's my 3 boys, my pride and joy, out by the swimming pool. Jimmy and Tommy they're all on the diving board, Jimmy, Billy, and Tommy. Good times. And that's me out in front of the restaurant where we ate most of the time while we was up there in Gatlinburg. And that's the boys out by Indian TP up there. I believe that was Klingman's Dome. And that's Jimmy out in front of the motel. And that's my 3 boys on an overlook up there somewhere. I believe that's Tommy over on the other side of that. Looked like a swimming pool or and a picture of a bear. You barely can see him right there. And that's me. That's when we were on vacation in the Smokies. I worked at GE then. And James worked for Wilson Roads, building houses. That's at an overlook. And that's Billy and me and Jimmy. And that's James coming out of the office at where we rented our motel room. And that's a picture of another bear. That's Jimmy out in front of the place where we ate. Or Billy. Can't tell. That might be Billy. Yeah. That's Billy. And that's James, and Jimmy, and Tommy, and Billy out in back of the house at Les Cassie's. That's just one of my favorite pictures right there. And that's me and the three boys out on the front porch at Les Cassie's. That's Jimmy sitting on the hood of our red Plymouth. And that's me and James. We were just getting home from church, I believe, that this was made. This was on Easter Sunday. That's James. He looks so good. And this was the same day, and that's Jimmy standing beside his first car. 49 Ford, and we had just got home from church that time. In fact, it was Easter, I believe, when these colored ones was made. And that's Billy. And that's my Tommy holding his baby chicken he got for Easter. And that's me and James. Jim. Me. And this switches a little bit. These are some pictures folks gave me. So that's Claire Faye and her daughter Jerry and her baby Ricky. That's Judy. School picture. Jerry. Diane Barnes. She's the little girl that lived up the road. That's her graduation picture. And there's a picture of me and James. Goes back to the last kisses. And that's May's two children, Betty and Michael. And this is Chuck, Charles and Helen's oldest Child. This was made on mine and James's bed at Last Cassie's. There's that radio James rigged up with the bell on it so loud it'd run you out of the country, 'cause we couldn't get up in the mornings on a regular alarm, so he had to fix it up. He had a bell nailed on a board of wood under the bed, and buddy, that thing would wake up everybody in Last Cassie's. This is James Simpson's little girl, and they lived over next door to us at Last Cassie's. It's Mike Barnes, neighbor's son, Diane Barnes. That's Billy clowning around. Mike. Diane. And this is Gloria Jean. This was Lucille, Margaret and Tommy Wood's sister's daughter, Gloria Jean. This is Dot and Virgil Leverett's little girl, Pam. And this is Claire Fay and Charlie's son, Ricky. Okay, we go to 1965 pictures. And most of these was when we had moved over to Battleground Drive then. That's Diane. Jimmy and Diane got married along about that time. And I believe she was pregnant with little Jim then. And this is at Christmas time, I believe. And that looks like Judy and Roger's back. James facing the camera, and me, and Mama and Jerry in this, in the dining room. That's Judy opening her presents. We always had a lot of company on Christmas. Roger Burks. He was in the Army then. This is just before him and Judy shipped out to North Carolina or somewhere. It's Judy and Roger. That's Tommy and Jerry. It's Jerry. Judy. Judy and Roger. And I always see music equipment in the background at my house after these years, because they all play music. I bet I've wrapped up guitars and strings and chords 20 million times. There's Jimmy and Diane. That's Jimmy opening his Christmas presents. That's Diane opening hers. Another one of Diane. And that's Diane trying to run away from the camera. Billy. Billy and Tommy. Mama. Me in my house coat. And me opening my jewelry box that Jim and Diane got. Seems like only yesterday. That's Diane opening her present, and I think Jimmy had got her a diamond ring and put it in a big box with Coca-Cola bottles and rocks and I don't know what all. And that's Tommy. James opening his presents. And that's Tommy and some little friends of his somewhere in the woods. I don't know who or where. And that's Diane. I think that picture was made over at that Bumpus girl's house. Can't remember her first name. Diane was so pretty. Beautiful strawberry blonde hair. And that's Tommy and some of his little friends. They went to a cave somewhere or another on a school trip or something, and Tommy made these next 2 or 3 pictures there. And that's Tommy sitting up on a rock. And there he is again. Okay, we're ready for 1966 pictures, and these are not very many of them either, and some of them so little that I don't know if they'll show up or not, but here goes. These was taken, I think, Tootsie and Uncle Minkett's house, and that's Uncle Minkett one Christmas, and we sat up all night long. I think that's Billy. And I think Tootsie and Louise and me, but I don't think you can tell who they are. That's Billy playing the guitar, James's legs, and one of Louise's little kids out there on the floor, I think. That's Jimmy and two of his little friends, but I don't know who they are. Can't remember their names. These is Jimmy's dime store pictures, made long about that same time or shortly after that or something. Okay, this is the year we got to go to Florida on vacation, and that's me and James laying on the beach, Panama City. And that's us laying on the beach. It's me and Jimmy sitting out under a palm tree. Billy. It's just a picture of the beach. I don't think I got none of Tommy on that beach because the first day we was there, he got 3rd-degree burns, and he was sick the rest of the whole time we was there. I mean, real sick. Okay, these next ones were 1967 pictures. And this was long about the time Jimmy went in the Army. And we got a lot of pictures of Little Jim and this. Here we go. That's Little Jim on our front porch on Jaton Drive. It was so precious. And there he is in his, we're back to Little Jim in his other granny's house by the front door, Diane's mother's house, Mr. and Ms. Earls, or James as he's known today, but back then he was Little Jim. There he is again. Or Nicky. His other granny called him Nicky, and his mother. But somehow I can't stop calling him Little Jim. He's so much like Jimmy was when Jimmy was a baby. And that was his first birthday cake over at his Granny Earl's house. That's him over there too. That's him too. He's so sweet. And his little boy looks a lot like him. I love these pictures. That's Mama and Billy on the couch at Christmas in '67, but these pictures weren't developed or reprinted or something till March, looks like. '67. And that's Tommy on the TV set. And I was working at Chromalox at that time. Okay, that's Diane and her brother's wife. I believe down at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And this was made when Jimmy was already in the Army and stationed at Fort Campbell. And that precious little Jim. And that's Diane holding little Jim. And that's James playing with him. We went down there to see him one time. Or more than once. About every other week we went down there to see him. And that's little Jim sitting on a footstool. And there he is thinking about going to sleep down on the floor. They must have decided not to go to sleep. Or that was before then. These are Diane's brother's wife and 2 children. And back at my house on Juton Drive, that's Linda's sister Carol and a friend of hers. Stopped by my house. And that's Billy sitting on the bed playing his guitar. That was about the time that him and Linda got married, too. Mama and Jerry. Billy and Linda and their friend and Linda's sister Carol. That's Tommy. All these was on Juton Drive. That's Jimmy and James, and he'd been home on leave, and he was going back to Fort Campbell. It was shortly before he went to Vietnam. And that's Bill and Jim. Back in mine and James's bedroom. Billy with his guitar down at the end of the hall. That's Tommy and Jerry and Houston picking a little music. Another one of James or Jim, little Jim. That's Daddy and Judy. That's Andrina. She's just a little bit older than little Jim is, or not much. A few months. That's another one of them. Andrina is my sister Judy's daughter. And that's another one of her. We ready for 1967 through 1968 pictures. And that's Jim on Jeton Drive with his baby, James Jr. or Nikki or Little Jim. Tommy at Christmas time on Jeton Drive. Diane. Jimmy, stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. It's little Jim when he would come over and spend the weekend with me while Jimmy was in Fort Campbell. Billy. Nikki. Billy and Linda. Linda. There's me and Judy sitting out on the front porch. James in the kitchen, he's opening him up a carton of Winston cigarettes. And that's Mama and little Jim. Daddy, D. Rowland, holding James E. Underwood the third, or little Jim. And it's little Jim with his guitar and his poodle dog, and that's me and him. And that's Jimmy. Looks like he's always going out the door to go back. But he came home on leave on weekends sometimes. And that's Jimmy holding Andrina. Judy went with us down there to see him one weekend. And we took Andrina with us. She had a broken leg at that time. And there he is back there in mine and James's bedroom, where we all spent so much time having our little talks. I never will forget them. And that's me sitting on my stereo that Tommy got me for Christmas one year. That's me and Jim at Fort Campbell. Judy. Me and little Jim. And that's David, I believe. I don't know how that picture got in here. Jumping the gun a little bit here. It's Tommy and little Jim. And that's him again. Tommy and him, and a picture of Tommy's Dodge out there parked by the curb. On Chaton Drive. Sure was pretty young. All of these are little Jimmy. That's me. I think that's James sitting next to me. Little Jimmy again. There he is playing in a box. There he is over my bike, riding a bicycle in a basket with James. And that's me and him before we got up one Saturday morning. Had him in bed with me. And more of them on the bicycle. Got lots of pictures of him when he long about this time. help me polish the floor. There's his little rocking chair and his teddy bear. Tommy in here on the bicycle this time, I believe. He's in his little rocking chair there. And here he is in the bathtub. Sound asleep in my bed. That's Jimmy's group at Fort Campbell. That's Andrina and Little Jim. Little Jim got his teddy bear over his face. And there's Big Jimmy and Little Jimmy. And in the car they are. There they are on the bicycle. And again. Back at Fort Campbell. And there they are on the bicycle again. Andrina and Little Jim. There he is, he's getting unhappy there. That's me on the front porch. And that's my brother Houston and Beulah Faye, his wife, and Lisa and Houston's wife, and Jeff between them. And that's me and Tommy. And James and Judy and Andrina. Tommy. Billy. Jimmy. Me. James sitting over there opening presents, and Jimmy up in the corner. Me and James doing some serious talking about something. That's our Christmas tree that year. Tommy and me and Billy. Looks like we sure spent a lot of time in that bedroom now. And that's Little Jim. Looks like he's wanting to cut the yard. I think that's the lawnmower Tommy put about 100,000 miles on long about that time, cutting yards for people. That's down at Fort Campbell, Kentucky there too, I believe. And Billy and Linda and a friend of Linda's. That's Tommy and Louise, Ewan's daughter. Jimmy. Me and Jimmy. Judy holding Andrina and Jimmy. There's Jimmy and his dad. That's me and Jimmy and Andrina. Okay, we're getting to Billy's wedding pictures now. This is the reception after Billy and Linda got married. And that's May over there, and Daddy, and Jack behind him. And don't know who that lady is, and Betty Ann's little girl, and Mama, and me, and Aunt Tootsie. And that's Linda's maid of honor, and Linda, and Billy, and Carol, and a little girl that Tommy escorted to the wedding, and Tommy. And the matron of honor, and I don't know her name, and Linda, and Billy, and Tommy. And that's Ann, Linda's mama, and Billy, and Linda's daddy. And this is the table for the reception. And this reception was held over at Linda's mother's house. That's Billy outside the church just before the wedding. And there's Billy putting the ring on Linda's hand. And I believe Johnny Bowman married. And there she is putting the ring on his hand. And it looks like he's kissing the bride there. Linda. Andrina. That's me bending over little Jim. Andrina and little Jim's rocking chair. Little Jim in a box. That's Lisa Houston and Bill Faye's little girl. Linda. There's Tommy and me and Bill and Linda. Chaton Drive. That's Billy and Linda's wedding picture. That's Jimmy. Diane. Tommy. And me and Linda and Billy and James. I always liked this picture. Me holding a guitar, wishing I could play it. And that's a little friend of some of the boys. I don't know. I don't remember which one. This is a vacation in Florida for me. And that's the boat we went out fishing on. I think that's Joyce and Peggy out there. Friends of mine, Joyce and Peggy and Joyce's daddy. And there they are again. And again, I worked at Chromalox then. And they did too. There's Joyce. That's Joyce by the ocean. Peggy on the swinging bridge. And that's me and Mr. Saul showing off our catch of red snapper that day. Only time I've ever been fishing that I caught anything, and I didn't like it then. Peggy. And that's all of us when we went deep sea fishing in our catch of the day. That day. That's Joyce and me and Peggy and Mr. Sauls. And that's me with my head stuck in an alligator. Fake, of course. And that's me holding up my marlin that I caught. And Joyce and Peggy and Mr. Sauls. Okay, we go to 1970 and just through 1971. And this is me down at Jimmy's in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Went down there to visit James and him and Linda and Mark. That's me and James. I like these pictures. And that's James. And that's James. And that's James and Bubba, I believe, little Tommy. These pictures was made at Jimmy's in Jonesboro. That's little Tommy. And Mark. And little Tommy. And Linda. Jim's Linda. This is me in my house trailer, and this is when it was parked down at Driver's Trailer Court, across on that road across from VA Hospital. That's little Tommy at my house. Tommy and Helen and little Tommy. Me. I hadn't had my house trailer too long then. And that's Sissy. Laying on my couch. David. Were Billy's children. Billy and Linda's children. Billy and Linda, David, Sissy. David. David and Sissy. And Jimmy. And Linda. Bill and Linda and David and Sissy. This is Mark. Jim and Linda's Mark. And that's me when I was visiting Judy in Memphis one time. That's Aunt Marina standing over to the far side. Me and Judy. Me and Judy. Me. I believe that's another picture of David. I'm not sure if it's David. Thank you.